They walked past alarms, dodged guards, and vanished into history, leaving behind nothing but empty frames and unanswered questions. Tonight, we're uncovering the most daring museum thefts of the past century. Stories so bold, you'll start to wonder how they ever got away. Liechtenstein painting heist, Vienna, Austria, 2008. Vienna's streets were hushed when the alarm finally screamed, but it was already too late. A masked thief had entered the museum, moving with the precision of a choreographed dance. Roy Lichtenstein's pop art masterpiece was lifted from its frame, snatched in seconds, yet leaving a trail of stunned curators and shattered glass. The thief vanished into the labyrinthine alleys, leaving investigators chasing shadows and speculation. Art critics debated motives: a collector, a dealer, or simply the thrill of the impossible. And while Vienna struggled with the audacity of the theft, rumors began to surface of a heist that didn't just steal art. It threatened to rewrite the rules of how history itself could be taken. Louvre Lens Egyptian Antiquities Theft, France, 2023. In the early morning hours, the quiet galleries of Louvre Lens were broken into by intruders with a clear goal: Egypt. Statues, sarcophagi, and ancient artifacts were removed with startling speed, their millennia-old presence snatched into modern shadows. Security alarms rang too late, and surveillance caught only blurred figures vanishing into the misty streets. Curators were left with empty pedestals and a sense of disbelief. Priceless history had slipped through their fingers. Yet as France grappled with the loss, whispers circulated of an even bolder plan. One where ancient treasures might not just disappear, but vanish in a way that would challenge the very idea of museum security itself. If these daring heists fascinate you, subscribe now and uncover more stories of audacity, mystery, and stolen history. National Gallery of Greece Heist, Athens, 2012. Athens had never felt so exposed. In a carefully timed strike, thieves bypassed reinforced doors and disabled alarms to access the gallery's most prized paintings. Canvases by Greek masters were lifted with silent precision, leaving empty frames that seemed to mourn their loss. Police scoured the streets, following leads from local fences to shadowy corners of Europe, yet the stolen art seemed to dissolve into thin air. The city watched in stunned disbelief. How could treasures so celebrated vanish in broad daylight? And while Athens searched for answers, murmurs began of a heist that would eclipse all others, one that would span continents and test the limits of daring itself. Norfolk Castle Museum Gold Coins Theft, UK, 2017. Under the cloak of night, Norfolk Castle Museum became the stage for a theft that seemed almost cinematic. Thieves bypassed state-of-the-art alarms and crept through the ancient corridors with uncanny precision. Their target: a collection of gold coins, some centuries old, each one a glimmering piece of history. In minutes, display cases were emptied, coins disappearing into waiting bags, leaving only shattered glass and stunned curators behind. The city awoke to shock and disbelief, the echo of lost treasures haunting the halls. Despite intense investigations, surveillance footage, and public appeals, the coins vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that continues to baffle experts and thrill true crime enthusiasts alike. Ashmolean Museum Cézanne Theft, Oxford, UK, 1999. It was supposed to be a quiet evening at Oxford's Ashmolean Museum, but tranquility shattered in an instant. A lone thief bypassed motion sensors and slipped into the gallery housing Cézanne's delicate works. With gloved hands and careful precision, he lifted view of Auvers-sur-Oise, avoiding the alarms that had failed him once before. By the time security noticed, the painting was gone, replaced by an empty frame that seemed to mock the museum staff. Investigators followed leads from black market art dealers to private collectors, but the Cézanne disappeared into Europe's shadowy art underworld. The audacity was breathtaking, a masterwork stolen with surgical finesse. Yet, as Oxford mourned, another heist was already brewing, one that would challenge not only skill, but sheer nerve. Montreal, Museum of Fine Arts Heist, Canada, 1972. On a cold February night, the streets of Montreal lay quiet, unaware that history was about to be rewritten. A group of thieves broke in through a side entrance, carefully navigating the galleries like predators in a cathedral of art. They targeted masterpieces by European old masters, slipping canvases into bags with astonishing speed. Alarms rang, but the getaway was flawless. The streets offered cover, and the stolen works vanished into the city's underground. Investigators tracked leads across provinces, but every clue dissolved like mist. For weeks, the museum was haunted by empty frames, whispers of betrayal, and the unnerving thought that someone had walked through their doors with treasures in hand. And yet, even as Montreal reeled, the next audacious theft would cross oceans and challenge the very idea of security. Tate Gallery Turner Paintings Heist, Frankfurt, Germany, 1994. It was a quiet evening in Frankfurt when shadows moved across the Tate Gallery's walls. In a daring strike, thieves bypassed security, slipping past guards and alarms to seize two of Turner's most celebrated landscapes. No one expected such precision. The burglars knew every corner, every sensor, every routine. Within minutes, the canvases were gone, leaving only empty frames that seemed to scream their absence. Police launched an immediate hunt, but the thieves melted into the city's veins, leaving behind only questions and the echo of audacity. Art critics and collectors alike were stunned. How could masterpieces vanish so cleanly from one of Europe's most guarded galleries? And as Frankfurt searched in vain, the next heist would prove that jewels, not paint, could be stolen with even greater nerve. If you're captivated by these daring thefts and the mysteries behind them, hit subscribe and join us as we explore more audacious heists from around the world. Bureau Collection Heist, Zurich, Switzerland, 2008. The night was moonless when three masked men pulled up to Zurich's Bureau Collection, a private museum known for its dazzling European masterpieces. Armed with crowbars and sheer audacity, they smashed through the reinforced glass and grabbed 8 paintings in under 10 minutes, works by Cézanne, Monet, and Degas. Security alarms screamed into the void, but the thieves had planned every second, slipping away before police could react. The city awoke to shock and disbelief. How could one of Europe's most secure collections be emptied in mere moments? Investigators chased rumors across borders, but the stolen art disappeared into the labyrinth of the black market. And while Zurich wrestled with betrayal, the next audacious theft would strike the heart of Italy, a heist that would leave Europe's treasures trembling. Castelvecchio Museum Robbery, Verona, Italy, 2015. In the shadow of Verona's medieval streets, thieves struck when the museum's alarms failed to trigger. With surgical precision, they removed paintings and sculptures from their centuries-old frames, loading them into waiting vehicles before anyone could intervene. Guards arrived to find empty pedestals and shattered glass, the air thick with disbelief. The stolen masterpieces, including Renaissance portraits and delicate ceramics, vanished into Europe's underground, leaving investigators scrambling for leads that led nowhere. The audacity was breathtaking, a medieval fortress breached with modern cunning. And just when the city thought it had seen the limits of daring, whispers began of a heist even more shocking, one that would challenge not only skill, but the very idea of what could vanish from sight. National Museum of Anthropology Gold Heist, Mexico City, 1985. It was a sweltering night in Mexico City when thieves crept through the shadows of the National Museum of Anthropology. Their target: pre-Columbian gold, treasures that had survived centuries, now threatened by modern audacity. With crowbars and sacks, they pried open display cases, scooping up necklaces, masks, and ceremonial ornaments worth a small fortune. Alarms wailed, but by the time authorities arrived, the culprits had melted into the bustling streets, leaving only the empty mounts and stunned curators behind. The city reeled at the loss, wondering how centuries of history could be carried off under the cover of darkness. Yet even as Mexico mourned its lost heritage, the next theft would leap from gold to glittering gems, in a heist that dazzled Europe and left the world questioning safety in its most secure vaults. British Museum Coin Collection Theft, London, UK, 2023. London woke to headlines that sounded impossible. A daring theft at the British Museum, one of the world's most secure institutions. Overnight, a masked intruder had bypassed state-of-the-art alarms, entering the coin gallery with surgical precision. Rare Roman denarii, medieval gold pieces, and centuries-old silver vanished into the night, leaving empty cases and stunned curators in their wake. Surveillance footage showed a shadow moving through the gallery, calm and deliberate, as if time itself paused to watch. Investigators scrambled, tracing every potential exit and contact, but the thief seemed to dissolve into the city's labyrinthine streets. And while London speculated on how someone could walk away with history itself, the next heist would trade coins for diamonds, shining a light on audacity that glittered far beyond cash. The Mona Lisa heist, Louvre, Paris, 1911. It was a quiet Monday morning when a small, unassuming man in a white work smock strolled out of the Louvre carrying the world's most famous painting under his arm. No alarms blared, no guards chased him. He simply disappeared into the Paris streets. That man was Vincenzo Peruggia, an Italian handyman who believed the Mona Lisa belonged back in Italy. For 2 years, she vanished. No trace, no clue, no ransom note. France panicked, newspapers raged, and tourists lined up just to stare at the empty wall where she once hung. When the painting finally resurfaced in Florence, the world gasped. The thief? Arrested, but hailed as a kind of folk hero. The mystery wasn't how he stole her. It was how the Louvre ever let her go so easily. Next, another theft so strange, it happened in plain sight. Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum robbery, Boston, USA, 1990. It began like a harmless prank. 2 fake cops at the door, a guard's uncertain smile, and a buzz that changed history. Once inside, the mood shifted. Duct tape, zip ties, and silence. For the next hour and 20 minutes, the museum became their playground. 13 masterpieces disappeared into the dark, including a rare Vermeer and Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee. Not one clue left behind, not even a footprint. Investigators chased mob rumors, coded phone calls, and dead ends that stretched across decades. The value of the missing art, over $500 million. Gone. Today, the empty frames still hang in place, waiting. It's not just a crime scene. It's a wound frozen in time. And if you think that was bold, the next thieves didn't sneak in. They crashed in. Van Gogh Museum heist, Amsterdam, Netherlands, 2002. Before dawn broke over Amsterdam, 2 figures scaled the museum's exterior like shadows with purpose. A ladder, a sledgehammer, and a plan timed to the second. In less than 4 minutes, they shattered a reinforced window, sprinted past alarms, and escaped with 2 priceless Van Gogh paintings. View of the sea at Scheveningen, and congregation leaving the Reformed Church in Nieuwenen. It wasn't subtle. It was fast, loud, and surgical. When police arrived, the thieves were gone, leaving nothing but broken glass and a stunned silence that echoed through the galleries. The stolen works vanished into the criminal underworld, traded, hidden, whispered about for years. It took 14 years before they resurfaced in a mafia safe house in Italy, dusty but intact. But the next theft didn't hide behind shadows. It unfolded under a crowd's gaze, bold as daylight itself. The Scream Theft, Munch Museum, Oslo, Norway, 2004. A quiet Sunday morning, families, tourists, and school groups drifted through the Munch Museum. Then, in a blur of movement and shouts, 2 masked men stormed in with guns drawn. They didn't sneak. They commanded the room. Within seconds, they tore the Scream and Madonna from the walls, glass shattering, alarms wailing, chaos erupting. Visitors froze as the thieves bolted through the exit, the paintings flapping like wounded birds. Outside, a getaway car waited. And just like that, Norway's most famous artwork vanished into thin air. The whole heist lasted under 2 minutes. Police found the frames discarded miles away, the canvas gone. For 2 long years, the world wondered if the scream had been destroyed forever. But when it finally resurfaced, battered yet alive, one thing was clear: the next thieves wouldn't need guns to shake the art world. Dresden Green Vault Heist, Germany, 2019. It was still dark when the power went out in Dresden's royal palace. A nearby junction box had been torched. Deliberate, precise. Moments later, security cameras blinked into darkness, and 2 masked intruders slipped through a small, broken window into one of Europe's most guarded treasure rooms, the Green Vault. Inside glittered centuries of royal jewels, diamonds, rubies, and emeralds that once adorned Saxon kings. The thieves smashed display cases with axes, scooping handfuls of priceless gems before vanishing into the night. It took them barely 5 minutes to pull off one of the biggest jewel heists in modern history. Even with arrests years later, most of the jewels remain missing. Their fate, a mystery glinting somewhere in the dark. And the next heist? It didn't crave royal jewels. It wanted something far more haunting. Stockholm National Museum Diamond Heist, Sweden, 2000. The city slept while a single window creaked open under the hands of an expert thief. Inside, the National Museum gleamed with treasures. But one case caught the intruder's eye: a collection of rare diamonds worth millions. Alarms blared almost immediately, yet in a daring display of precision, the thief disabled sensors, grabbed the stones, and disappeared into the chilly Swedish night. Police launched a citywide hunt, helicopters scanning rooftops and streets. But the diamonds seemed to vanish into thin air. Rumors swirled, hidden in secret safes, smuggled abroad, or locked in a vault only the thief knew. No one saw it coming, and no one knew how it would end. But the next daring theft would be bolder still, striking at the heart of Europe's art world. Kunsthal Museum Robbery, Rotterdam, Netherlands, 2012. In the dead of night, the quiet streets of Rotterdam hid a storm of chaos. 3 masked intruders stormed the Kunsthal Museum, smashing windows and disabling alarms with meticulous timing. In just 6 minutes, they had stolen paintings by Picasso, Monet, and Matisse, masterpieces that could never truly be replaced. The audacity stunned the nation. Cameras captured the thieves moving like shadows, yet leaving no trace of their escape route. Investigators raced against the clock, tracing tips and rumors across Europe, but the artwork seemed to evaporate into thin air. Authorities suspected organized crime, but nothing concrete emerged, leaving galleries and collectors uneasy. And just when the world thought the impossible had been done, the next heist would test the line between art and audacity even further. Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris heist, France, 2010. Paris had never felt so silent. In the early morning, 2 thieves scaled the museum's facade, cutting through reinforced glass as if it were paper. Inside, the galleries glittered with modern masterpieces: Picasso, Braque, Modigliani. Yet the intruders moved with ruthless efficiency, seizing 5 paintings worth hundreds of millions. Alarms screamed, but the city's narrow streets became their maze, and within minutes, they vanished. Investigators later discovered that the thieves had planned every step down to the last detail: security schedules, escape routes, even the timing of street traffic. The brazen act left Parisians stunned and museums across the continent shivering in fear. But as investigators chased shadows in Paris, the next theft would take audacity to a level no one expected, stealing treasures in plain sight. Hermitage Museum Diamond Heist, St. Petersburg, Russia, 2006. Winter in St. Petersburg is harsh, but the cold couldn't deter thieves with a singular goal: the Hermitage's priceless diamond collection. Disguised and precise, they bypassed guards and silent alarms, moving like shadows through gilded halls. In minutes, select diamonds were lifted from their cases, the sparkle of centuries of craftsmanship snatched and hidden away before anyone could react. The city woke to news that seemed almost mythical. Jewels plucked from one of the world's most secure museums. Investigators traced leads across Europe, but the loot vanished, leaving only speculation and whispers of an underground empire. And as Russia grappled with audacity in its crown jewels, the next theft would pivot from gems to the unpredictable world of modern art, testing nerve over sheer value. Picasso Museum theft, Antibes, France, 2007. The sleepy coastal town of Antibes stirred to chaos one night as masked intruders struck the Picasso Museum. Using ropes and ladders, they bypassed exterior alarms and slipped into galleries filled with Cubist masterpieces. In mere moments, paintings were ripped from their frames and stuffed into bags, leaving empty walls that echoed with the absence of genius. Local police swarmed, but the thieves vanished into the winding streets, leaving townspeople in stunned disbelief. The stolen works were never recovered, their fate whispered about in the black market's shadowy corners. And just when France thought it had seen the limits of brazen art theft, the next daring crime would target a technological treasure. A heist where creativity and circuitry collided in an entirely new Museum of East Asian Art Robbery, Bath, UK, 2018. The quiet cobblestone streets of Bath had never felt so tense. In the dead of night, thieves forced entry into the Museum of East Asian Art, bypassing alarms and security cameras with uncanny skill. Ancient ceramics, jade carvings, and delicate scrolls were lifted and packed into unmarked vans, leaving empty pedestals that seemed to mourn their loss. Curators arrived the next morning to a scene of chaos, glass shattered, artifacts missing, and a lingering sense that centuries of history had been plucked away in an instant. And yet, while the UK scrambled to piece together what was taken, across Europe, another heist was quietly being planned. One that would combine audacity with a boldness bordering on the impossible. Auckland, War Memorial Museum medals, theft, New Zealand, 2007. In the early hours, shadows moved silently through the halls of the Auckland War Memorial Museum. Thieves knew exactly where to go. The display of military medals, each a story of courage and sacrifice, glimmered under dim lights. In minutes, rare Victoria crosses and other historic decorations were snatched, leaving empty velvet cases that felt almost like wounds. Alarms finally screamed, but the intruders had already melted into the quiet streets, leaving investigators chasing echoes and leads that went cold. The nation watched in disbelief. How could symbols of bravery vanish so completely? And while New Zealand grappled with the loss, whispers of the next heist hinted at a daring strike on a city renowned not for medals, but for treasures far more dazzling and far more dangerous. Tokyo National Museum, Samurai Sword Theft, Japan, 2016. In the heart of Tokyo, the museum's halls echoed with silence as a lone thief moved with meticulous precision. Centuries-old samurai swords, each blade a legend forged in fire and honor, were carefully lifted from their mounts. Sensors remained silent, and cameras captured only fleeting shadows. By the time guards discovered the crime, the swords were gone, vanished into the sprawling city before anyone could react. Experts were left stunned. These weren't just artifacts, they were irreplaceable pieces of Japan's history. Investigators chased leads across districts, questioning collectors and underground dealers, but the swords seemed to vanish into a world of whispers and rumors. And just as Japan wondered if the stolen treasures would ever return, another European museum faced a heist so audacious it would shake the very idea of security itself. Chagall painting theft, New York, USA, 2018. The New York skyline glittered as night fell, but inside a quiet gallery, a storm was brewing. Two masked figures slipped past motion sensors, disabling cameras with practiced hands, and carefully lifted a Chagall masterpiece from the wall. In the span of minutes, the vibrant colors and whimsical figures vanished, leaving behind an empty frame that seemed to sigh. Security scrambled, alarms blaring, but the thieves had already disappeared into the labyrinth of city streets. Investigators followed a trail of speculation, from private collectors to shadowy intermediaries. Yet the painting remained elusive. Some say it vanished into a private vault. Others whisper of secret auctions hidden from public eyes. And while New York pondered the fate of Chagall's brilliance, another heist loomed on the horizon, daring and unpredictable in a way the art world had never seen. The world of museum heists is a shadowy mix of audacity, planning, and mystery. From stolen masterpieces to vanished jewels, each theft leaves a mark that echoes through time. These stories remind us that even the most secure treasures can be vulnerable, and the next daring heist is always waiting in the shadows.